This is Joe Zanola with Zanola Company and Market Graphics. I want to welcome you to this webcast. We're calling this Beef Up Your Traditional Research, and what we're going to do is show you an example project that we did in Destin, Florida, and how we kind of arrived at the methodology that would best serve our client there. This is the invitation you received, and I want to thank you for attending. What we're going to do is kind of quickly go through a number of slides. In case you want to review this, you can look back on it, but to kind of present it to you quickly then for your use later. This is some information about our company, Zanola Company. Joe Zanola, Rachel Ballard, also Angelo Zanola, are kind of our key contributors to this project. What we provide are research for real estate development that tends to occur in these four categories: new homes, multifamily, commercial, retail, and governmental. The levels of work that we do are shown on both this slide as well as this slide if you want to review in terms of just different types of projects. What's important to understand is that although we show those generally, those general guidelines, each project that we get into prior to starting, we kind of put together a methodology that we think is best for that particular project. This one was really interesting to us because it brought in a lot of different aspects and thought it'd be fun to show you. If we look at kind of a traditional research flow for retail, this kind of applies to most other categories that we showed you also: housing, multifamily, commercial, governmental. What we essentially do is follow this flow here from the beginning to reach our conclusion. We introduce the project. We provide a kind of a mapping perspective of the area in which we're doing our research, focus on the demographics and demand within that area, the competitive supply in that area, and then we kind of do a comparative analysis where we bring together all those areas that we've done our research gathering on. And from that comparative analysis, we deliver really our matrix, growth segment forecast, absorption scenarios, all the things that are kind of the conclusion that our clients need to reach. This is our traditional process. What we realize in that traditional process there are some limitations within that, especially that we found within the Destin market area. And those were that there was a confining market perspective, only using the local primary market area mapping. So much of the Destin market had people coming, going, that was driven by more than just the local residents. That limited also the demand, the demographics focus. If you only looked at what was in the Destin market, you would really feel like that you were limited into just the local census-based demographics. And that on the supply side, it would be undifferentiated market area supply from a lot of other competitive data that would be competitive. And then finally, our analysis would be incomplete based on the lack of really robust, complete data, and that would lead us to provide a inaccurate research model. We just missed a lot of the significant activity on that. So in providing and presenting this to our client, what we wanted to do first was to make sure that we kind of showed the traditional flow, and the flow is just great. We've worked for years to kind of arrive at this, but really realized that in that, if we kind of only used a local-based viewpoint, that would be limiting. Now, what we just showed you in terms of this flow as well as those limitations are things that I think are well recognized and acknowledged, but what we try to do is really look at the areas that we can make that flow work by bringing in a broader perspective. First of all, in the mapping perspectives, we decided to add what we call a visitor originator hotspot marketing, essentially identifying areas that people were coming from that we could really understand kind of the broader mapped area beyond just the Destin market. We also wanted to add mapping that showed expenditure zones to the local primary market area. Market area like Destin, as we looked at it, we felt like, well, there's really areas in continuing growth that become hotspots of growth, and as they kind of emerge, there are other areas that become obsolete. So we wanted to make sure before we got into the demand and the supply that we set up areas that we could really see what was trending with as far as mapped sub-areas within the Destin market area. And Destin is down here. So what we did was identify that not only this local market area, that we're going to reach out and identify those other hotspot areas throughout the southeast, south central, and midwest part of the country. For the demographics and competitive supply, we set up a foundation that essentially we introduced the topic of total effective population. And we were going to do that by buyer segments. Now, what effective population means, if you think of an area that has a large number of visitors, tourism, or part-time population, that are not captured in the census, we say there's an effective population that's greater than what the census is counting. Now that's obvious, but we realize that it's very difficult to capture that. We want to establish that as an important part, both on the demographics demand side as well as the supply. So we introduced the concept of the total effective population. On top of that, to capture that, we decided that we would really build on that platform these components. We're going to add the tourism capture for quantity, seasonality, buyer segments, travel type, the equivalent communities by census residents, and then comparable Destin communities by census residents. So what we're doing is really identifying the areas that people were coming from, traveling to and from, and Destin has a vibrant tourism population as well as a military. We're going to build on that and then also look for comparable equivalent communities to Destin that we can also measure the difference between what their full-time census count of population would be as well as the part-time to come up with the effective year-round. So effective year-round population is essentially the sum total of the population if you kind of equalized it into a year-round population, regardless if you're full-time or part-time. On the kind of stacking on top of the competitive slide, we added the retail trends and supply, figuring obsolescence. We're going to use kind of sales tax and other portions of the supply equation to really back into what the supply being provided was, and then add some focus supply categories and inventories that were very specific to this client to really understand not only the demand side, what was going on the demand side coming in, but on that demand side, the supply that was there waiting for them and what the expectations were. So we're not only building this total effective population on the demand side, but really looking at what that effective population was expecting based on supply. In other words, just as we could not measure the demand based on the local presence of folks, we could not also assume or predict that the total supply as well as the type of supply was only appropriate for the local demand, that it was really majorly factored by those that were coming in to create that total effective population. Next, from building on those, we also added a kind of in the comparative analysis, which compared the mapping, demographics, competitive items, we added a few things in terms of kind of the most opportune retail segments by mapped area. We're trying to provide a future outlook for the retail client. We didn't want to base everything just on as is now or presumptions. So we wanted to make sure that as discovering future opportunities, our comparative analysis included a discovery of opportune segments within the mapped area and by the buyers group. And also to expand the comparative analysis, adding on new components, all the mapping and things like that to make it really robust and interactive. And then finally, to create an accurate research model, we'd build upon all those things and on top of the traditional research methods that we just went through, and we deliver a total market demand and supply analysis for longer-term trending and broad specific opportunity forecasting. So for the client, which is a major kind of developer and property manager, we're trying to provide a tool not only for them to understand what the trends and demands and opportunities were, but also that they could leverage into a very compelling and persuasive research information that would kind of allow them to be most on top of where the opportunities were in their market. Now, if you think back to the traditional research method, this slide here and the things we showed you, we also kind of we discovered that most of their competition was kind of getting by and really providing what we felt like was just really this base level that referred to more than the traditional way, but they really didn't capture it the way we did. So all in total, and this may be something, if you look back for this, that you could see kind of the traditional flow within a market like Dustin that had all sorts of dynamics, which each market does, and we're finding that this is a great example. We try to set this kind of process up before going into any project, actually during our proposal. We identify what the weaknesses are of the traditional way without adding more, and then build in those items with there. So we hope that when you think of Destin, Florida in the future, you also think of where you are now and all the ways that Zanola Company can help you with your research, and we certainly invite you to call us. We want to thank you for watching and listening to this presentation by Zanola Company, a market graphics licensee. Beef up your traditional research. This is Joe Zanola. Thank you, and hope to talk to you soon.